style also, but I'm very similar. I don't like I'm in a band and I've done filmmaking, and I don't tell the bass player how to play the bass. I don't tell the DP how to DP. I try to communicate what I want, and then they just do something awesome, and I don't, and that's it, really,
Right.
And that seems like that's the way you work too, and that's great because I mean, if you don't know how to do that, then why would you try and tell somebody how to do their craft?
Well, I think look, I can tell you there's probably a portion in my life where I was screaming for, some sort of direction and masking it and like saying that that's okay because that's what leaders do, right? You see the portrayal of the football coach or the CEO or Gordon Gecko and greed is good and backstabbing is this, right? But it's just, why is everything broken? Like,
Mm.
why is everyone mad at me? Why am I alone? Maybe this isn't working. Like, and it always felt unnatural. Like the wave of guilt when you get in an argument with a coworker, for me, I don't like it
Mm.
afterwards, right? I wish it was, but it gets heated, or someone that you love and you scream like, but you don't like you mature when you actually can take a step back and be like, you know what? Listen, I'm hangry, or I'm just in a mood. I'm feeling anxiety. Like I got pressure from X, Y, and Z, and that's on me. And I'm so okay with saying that now because otherwise you're gonna have to like hold on to a grip that you got to remain flawless, and that's not possible.
Mm.
People are gonna see your cracks. Just identify them, for them beforehand or in the process. And I think we're very accepted.
I think that's slowly changing about, the
Mm.
dynamic in the workplace. But there still is a lot of that facade. And you're so right. Like we're all human. You're gonna have a bad day. You're gonna like react in a way that in retrospect, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have handled that a different way. And to just kind of talk about how you're feeling or what you're dealing with is so
Yeah,
important.
I think it's changing. I think that it's happening on the grassroots level, coworker to coworker. I think
Yes,
it's
that's true. Yeah.
being deterred. HR has just the function of human resources has disappointed me in such a huge way. I thought it really had an opportunity to be a moral backbone and kind of character driven role. It's just labor. It's labor, labor, and legal. It's
Yeah.
sad. So I'm hoping we can see a wave away from that. Um, it's not looking too exciting when blockchain. I mean, like everyone talks to me about blockchain. I've been working with it for a while in healthcare, but like literally, it's the new game changing technology that came out based on the fact that we can't trust each other and everyone rips each other off. Like I have a problem with that being our saving grace, is like a vault of like lack of trust for lack of trust. And like, let's not talk about the energy consumption. So I think that you can see it in the technology that we're creating, blockchain, and then in the C-suite executive that we're anointing, which is the chief human resource officer. So it's another lever of control. And I think that the only way we're going to break through that is if there's only so many levers they can put in place before, it's just absurd. And there's only so
Mhm.
many more cops. The next time they're going to have to send 300 police officers, right? And then it'll be 600 police officers because there'll be, instead of 400 people, there'll be 800 people. Eventually, there's going to have to be, the military is going to have to surpass the populace. And that isn't going to happen.
Right. There's somebody, it may have been Chris Hedges, a journalist that I follow, that said like what you're talking about at the point at which it reaches critical mass, right? Like those people, the military, the cops, they're going to look out into the crowd and see like, there's my uncle, or there's my brother, and so the point at which they're faced with that, do I crack the skulls, of my literal family? That's when people they'll start to put the clubs down.
Yeah, the club's down, but then also like there's just no way you're going to have a police force that is going to, outrank the people. It's just not possible. And I'm not saying that there's going to be a civil war, but they're going to have to eventually stand down. right? If they can't hire 374 more police officers here, it's up to us to actually come together, right? It's continuous to us to show up and for us to convene, but not just between police shootings or like the revoking of women's rights, right? Like it's continuous. And if we do that, like the number one thing we're missing is communication. We're so connected and so disconnected at the same time. Like it terrifies me what other people's algorithms and news feeds are. I mean, I've spent a lot of time honing mine, but some 20-something-year-olds that still come over from the 70 plus that were in this house, I'm looking at theirs and it's like rap music and burgers, and like, that's cool. That's great. But like, if you're not in, like, technology is only going to feed you what you're consuming. So if you're consuming rap videos, you have no idea there's an insurrection outside your door.
Yeah,
if I'm consuming flight and travel and leisure, there's no way I understand that police are brutally executing Black men and women in America.
Yeah.
You just won't see it.
Yeah, it's that way on a small scale too. On my Facebook, I mean, starting 2016 is when I really started to get a little political. And I used to say stuff all the time on my Facebook wall, and eventually I learned I was just talking to my, basically my high school friends, and it was kind of silly, which is kind of the reason why I wanted to do a broadcast. But what I noticed was, after a couple of years, anytime I would say anything that was something so important that was happening in the world, it'd be like one like by the same person that always likes things like that, and they might say something, and everybody else would leave it alone. But if I showed like my kid or something, in the backyard, it'd be like 30, 40 things or something like that, comments, and I'm like, oh, okay, so really it's just they just don't want to engage with this thing.
Escapism. I mean, like, people are going to social. Like, there's this thing about social that is like supposed to be check out, like, and fluff. I mean, if we look at all of our programming from TV, if we look at the way that theme parks are now being developed, they're all escapist. And I love it. I love tuning out and watching a great drama or something else. And, I have all the streaming services, right? So I'm good for that too. But it's also like, do you live in that surrealism, or do you tie that back to your everyday reality? And I think that you're starting to see a reckoning where everyone's starting to realize that the everyday reality that they've been trying to keep in place, the 80-hour weeks. I used to tie my hour, like how many hours I would work and miles I would fly, to my self-worth. To be able to sit for 3 days, or like, and now be in like entertainment in Hollywood, like, I'm not having back-to-back Zoom calls. I'm doing like 1 to 2 meetings a day, and like, I struggle. I'm like, wow, I do nothing with my life. Well, like, I have a lot going on. I'm just not in an office or on a Zoom or checking a box, but I'm in my head or I'm on my phone. And so it does. We're programmed that way. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm finding a lot of tranquility and peace in talking to artists, because they realize that you have to allow for things to come. Corporate innovation, as much as I want to think of myself as an artist in inception and conception, like, you have to fit back into that process. I remember giving a speaking session on the process of innovation. And like, that sounds now very like there's a process to execute on that innovation, but there's no okay, like, what do you do? Set aside 4 to 8 p.m. to say, okay, now I'm going to innovate. Like, it just kind of comes to you a little bit. And then you have to seize on that spark and maybe put it into the process from there. Mm-hmm. So I think we really need to how to rework and rethink, our professional and like the way we're going about our everyday work and profession.
Like, as a community, right?
I'm sorry?
As a community, like as a nation, you mean?
I think tying it into it is ridiculous. It's so I can make I understand how important work is, especially how expensive things are getting. But I had the misconception that 20-somethings and 30-somethings were all about work so they could get the Prada and the Louis Vuitton bag. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's because owning a car is damn expensive.
Mm.
It's filling up is damn expensive. Its rent is damn expensive. So that's why they're working 2 or 3 jobs. Like, it's because not, and so they can maybe go on vacation with their friends like I used to when I was 20. And so I used to think that it was like we're falling off this cliff of materialism. Sure, for the 1% excess and all this other stuff. Fast fashion, you know, it's, you don't need to be working 3 jobs to go to Zara. You should just stop going to Zara. But it's just because things are getting so expensive. Teachers are driving Uber, you know, at night. People living in the Bay Area are commuting an hour and a half to come into San Francisco, 2 hours. How much time do you have at home when your 4 hours your day is in transit?
Yeah. And there's this whole group of people that are voters that think, well, that's American. You've got 2 jobs. That's good for you. And but that isn't what we should be working towards. We should be working towards everyone being happier and healthier and being able to explore more interesting things and more, so that we can grow better and become more connected. But if you're just, I work 3 jobs, well, congratulations. No, that's bad. I'm sorry that you do.
It's not American. Like, it's the person who's saying, you know, well, my grandfather used to work 3 jobs in the coal. They're not working the 3 jobs. Someone in their family used to. The other thing is, I can see, like, yes, you're supposed to work hard and do whatever. If you're working 3 jobs to throw your daughter or, you know, your sister an amazing wedding or something like that, or to put her through college or something like that. People are working 2 or 3 jobs to break even, to eat, to survive.
Yeah.
You have to make $144,000 a year in Washington, D.C. to break even for a family of 4. That is absurd, right? Because of childcare, taxes, transportation, housing. I'm not even joking. That number is dead on. There's not a lot of people who make $144,000 a year in this country or in DC. So in order for them to do that, that's 2 jobs per parent, you know, per adult in the household. And yeah, that's we've lost our way. You know, it's everything has gotten more expensive. When the economy crashes, the most vulnerable and the poorest are the ones that are going to suffer the most. And that has happened ever since, you know, you can date it back for the last thousands of years.
Yeah, it's almost like it's built into the system. Like, oh, this is where we can grab everything.
Yeah.
It seems.
I think so. I think that's why it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about earlier. It's systemic. These are, if you go by design, it was designed this way. You know, the society is going to benefit from, you know, the most marginalized people. They feed the system. Go to New York City. You see the high skyscrapers and the penthouses and everything below feeding everyone up on high. It's right there in front of your face.